I would like to invite all the session chairs to come back to the podium, please. So now we have this really interesting and key messages. So I would like to have an interactive discussion with all of you. So do you really agree with these recommendations? This is my first question, to have your questions and comments. Do you see that there are any missing issues, or the issues that were omitted, or you would like to highlight more? This is the second question that I would like to think about when you ask questions or comment. And actually, maybe instead of asking questions, maybe we would like to hear more of your views. And then also the third question to you would be, what would be your key message or recommendation, not specifically referring to any of the sessions, but in the general context of the overall theme of the symposium? So floor is open, and I already see Dr. From Lee from,
From Malaysia, yeah. So I think one thing missing is, in this discussion is that we are talking about water quality monitoring. It's always us, the expert, or maybe the researcher, you know. But why not let the people do it themselves? I'm talking about community empowerment. Why not we enable the people to do it themselves? Why must we always go and collect data, you know, analyze them and tell them the water is good and no good, you know? Why not they themselves do it? For example, you know, if somebody has high blood pressure, they will measure the blood pressure. They don't go to a doctor and ask, what is my blood pressure? If they're diabetic, they need to monitor glucose, they test the glucose themselves. They don't go to a doctor and ask, what is my glucose level? So this is one example that we can actually empower the people to do it themselves. By doing that, they are more aware that the water is very important to them. So they can get the first-hand information rather than through us. Of course, we will continue to do our high-level research work. So there's something that I think we have not addressed that.
For bringing up this important issue, I think the public participation, empowerment of communities, I think this is the issue we didn't really address, and we have to admit that it's a really important issue. More comments? Yes, please, Asma.
Thank you very much. I think we need to admit that the gender issue is very important. It's affecting the water quality. And she is as well important in the side of the public awareness, especially for her kids, because they are the new generation. And the citizen science is very important nowadays, and we need as well to have a look at it. Thank you.
More comments? Yaya, please, Professor Yaya.
The suggestion by the man from Malaysia is quite interesting and explorable. But I remember in Nigeria we give a thought to it. But we discovered that there are some critical parameters in water that cannot be handled by the community at the community level. For example, let's talk about heavy metals, particularly in communities where you have prevalent mining activities. So there are some parameters that are quite critical and a bit much more, require more instrumentation in determining them than at community level. What we just were able to do was to give them some simple things like maybe a litmus paper to be able to check acidity and some basic parameters, but which may not be far-reaching in deciding to know the potability of water than other parameters, which require more sophisticated instrumentation. So I think that is quite possible, but maybe UNESCO is to give an attention to it and see if a research can be done in such a way that water quality measurements can be simpler and community-based for a one-time or one instance assessment or impression of water for drinking.
Important issue. Thank you very much. Albert, you would like to say, yes, really, I was wondering why you were not going to comment, but I'm so glad that you are going to comment, because you always have very good comments and ideas.
Thank you very much. I would like to agree with all what chairs of different sessions have reported back. However, my take-home messages are the following: that in order for us to do anything, information is the key. And I think it's very important that we need to try to think on how we get the information, how we store, and more importantly, how is it that we share the information to different stakeholders? Because whatever decisions that we're making, if they're not based on the information, then there's no way we can go about it. And then the second thing is that it's really very important that we need to start thinking the innovation approach. It's not just like we need to go for high-tech kind of innovation or something like that, because I think different problems are contextual bound, because like I was saying, the problems that we have in Africa, the way we solve should be slightly different from what they have in developed world. Developed world, they're talking about the chemicals, imaging, pollution, but in Africa, even being able to afford the basic sanitation facilities, we still have a problem. And then the very last message for me is that when we are talking about the solutions, it's not one specific discipline. It has to be multidisciplinary. Engineering, ecological, and all this kind of stuff.
Yes, Lalika? Sorry, Andreas.
I would like to maybe us to think about pollution versus the economic gain. I think most of our polluters are mainly industrial players, and they gain a lot from polluting our environment. How can we bring them into monitoring this pollution that occurs?
Thank you for bringing this very important issue. And is there anyone who wants to share comments? Yes, please. Yeah. Yes, Professor Jamari Subishmiki.
Thank you. My question is for Yamashiki. If it is necessary. I see that my presentation can be included in the session concerning policy, institutional capacity building. What do you think?
Of course, I think that's a really important comment. Of course.
My presentation concerns water resources management challenges and the problems in Burundi. Yeah. I insist effectively about the
we will incorporate the conclusions and outcomes of your contribution in the context of political policy, institutional, and frameworks for water quality management. Because actually, the different contributions, even though they were in specific sessions, they touched upon also on other aspects of water quality management. So, of course, they contributed to different issues. But I think we are, of course, we would like to continue to discuss, and we can do it for hours and hours. But I would like to conclude by summarizing, Professor.
Well, I'll try to be brief, but the issue of community participation was raised, and then the issue of importance of sharing information effectively. So now we have the internet, using which we can share information with communities very easily, and I work in a university. I would like to point out that in the US, environmental monitoring systems have been used for educating middle school students and so on, have been very effective in getting kids interested in science and math. And I think to deal with the complexity that has been evoked, we really need to involve young people, get them interested. And so I would like to point out the US example. Well, it's also done in Canadian, which apparently has not yet spread to Asia and Europe. I would just say that recently I've had a few exciting experiences seeing high school kids present applications of remote sensing to water quality. It was very exciting.
Yeah, this is a really important issue, and actually one of the topics, if you look at the concept paper on the brochure, that we also wanted to have this aspect addressed, like citizens monitoring. but we haven't received any contribution on this topic. But actually, this is also an important issue, how to involve youth or the general public in water quality monitoring. On the World Water Day 2010, the 2010 World Water Day was dedicated to water quality, and UNESCO launched a campaign in schools to do water quality testing. So we distributed kits to a class and one kit to a teacher, and then students would go to a field trip to a pond or river and a well, and they would do the basic of 6-7 analysis, and then they would post the results directly online on the website, where they would say, okay, on this spot, Google Map, so many number of students made so many number of sampling and testing, and the medium average values were this and this, and so you could have this information. Actually, this is still available. Of course, we couldn't continue it after this World Water Day in 2010, but it also provides an important contribution in terms of awareness raising and also informing the public. And I think to conclude and wrap up the conclusions, and I think the water quality monitoring is a very technical field, and of course it's very specific, but it really links to all different disciplines, and actually it really requires a multidisciplinary or maybe transdisciplinary approach, because our conclusions and also the presentations were linked to health, or to modeling, or to bacteria, or to public participation, to governance. And even though we were here to talk about water quality monitoring, we also talked about all the related issues. And so I think this really shows the complexity of the issue, and also because the issue is so complex, we also need to have an integrated, holistic approach in order to have a more sustainable water quality monitoring. Because water quality monitoring is not per se a process or a purpose, because it's only a tool to have enough data and information, and we need to translate this data and information into sound policy. So that is the most important information. Of course, there are challenges, so challenge to obtain good data, challenge to obtain reliable data, challenge to make use of those data, and how to share these data among the countries, or different, not even among the countries, but within the country, between different institutions, different stakeholders, how to make this data and information available to those who need it, or even to users of different water users, like from domestic to agricultural and industrial users. So I think it was really rich symposium, and I think we have also had really good leadership of session chairs, because these presentations were too technical, sometimes were very sophisticated with the modeling, you know, these fancy videos showing the modeling results or satellite data, but I think the two key concluding messages from those highly scientific presentations was really important. And with that, I would like to thank all our session chairs for your contribution to bring good speakers, good presentations to the sessions, also for your contributions as session chairs to lead these sessions. And please stay on the podium. And now I would like to ask Professor Yamashiki to inform participants about what are the future steps, what are the future opportunities, and also would like to afterwards conclude the overall symposium and to have the closing speech by Dr. Takara Kaoru. Yeah. So, but please stay here.
Yeah, let me just introduce some of the important activities that we had to follow up. We have an extremely fruitful session carried out for these 3 days. However, we had to wrap up everything as an outcome report, which is due the end of August. So I would like you to contribute as soon as possible for those who can send the document, send paper. And also we will collect probably it's a scientific paper, probably in the form of the special issue, those for selected paper and with peer reviewed. And we will share all this presentation by video as open web course in the Kyoto University and authorized by the UNESCO. And we will share, we'll try to link the available database and the experience And in addition to that, we have a SMS as Facebook and Twitter, and I would like you to press like button as soon as possible to our webpage. And also, we have to target for the goal the UNESCO IHP action plans. She has already introduced several action plans. And also, we have to focusing on the sustainable development goals, especially the number 6. Of course, I hope that we will have the next UNESCO water quality meeting will be held by the Sarantuyaa in some place in Asia. She is now planning to the fundraising and also the inviting your participation for the future successive framework. So from myself, I should deeply thanks for your patience and also the collaboration for everything. Thank you very much.